Better now.
I don't know how they do
That
that.
sound is so good, Mausiki. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Hey Jay, how are you?
I'm good. I've just become a musician.
We have become
I'm ready to take over.
What do you want to call us? Drumettes?
Bob Marley would call you the I3.
Hey, that works.
That's funny. Hello everyone, welcome to Talk Time Africa. What a fun time we're having today in celebration of Afro-beat. Thank you for joining us. Here today we have Mausiki joining us, Mausiki Scales.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
And that sounded so good, we could go on all night.
Okay, let's go.
No, let's not. But anyway, let's talk about Afrobeat for a second.
Okay.
What does Afrobeat mean to you?
Well, Afrobeat, from studying Afrobeat, this is a term coined by Femi Kuti, who was a Yoruba man from Nigeria who decided to combine what he had heard traditionally in Nigeria and high life music, and blending that with the sound that was emanating from the West, with African Americans playing funk music, the likes of James Brown, and even jazz with Miles Davis and John Coltrane. So fusing this together and inspired also with some political fervor, decided to stand up for people and even speak out at times against what he perceived as a corrupt government at the time. So inspired by that, it has just become something that I've embraced because I identify strongly with many of his views as it relates to Pan-Africanism, this community-oriented music that gives people a sense of identity as well.
It does.
So how does all this pan out with, you've got another profession other than this though.
Yes.
You are a professor of history?
Yes.
So that's got something to, does that all relate?
Sure, I definitely feel like, both are conjoined. In fact, Fela himself was not, he was very much an educator as well through his music. I have pictures of him lecturing in Ghana to college students, and even in walking up to the shrine, there were books for sale, so you see this blending of education and entertainment going into the music, something that we still could very much use today. Yes.
Funny, I never paid a visit to the shrine that he just mentioned. The shrine, I never got to the shrine, but I understood that it was a different world out there, and I wish I would have been.
It's still there. Femi
I
is
know
playing
it's
there.
still there. Yeah. But talking about how you made the connection to Afrobeat.
Interesting story. Okay, this takes me back. I'm born and raised in Gary, Indiana, and when I was about 7 or 8 years old, my parents bought a piano. And I have an older brother who is 10 years older than I am. And at the time, funk music was just at a height. Parliament Funkadelics and, Sly Stone. So he played these type of records around when my parents bought this piano. And I'm listening to his records, playing the piano, and there's a boombox sitting on top of the piano at the time. So one of the first songs that I picked up was Parliament's Flashlight. I played it by ear, and and you hear the that minor chord, and that stayed with me. It was to the point where by the time I got into the 6th and 7th grade, I was very proficient at soloing in that same key that song was in. It took me a while to work my way through the other keys. And little did I know that something similar was happening on both shores, like meaning Africa and Africa's diaspora in the Americas. Because from studying this as an adult, I'm seeing the connections that while many African Americans were pushing for civil rights and equal rights in America, we see this same time period being the time where African states are pushing for independence.
Like an
starting with
awakening
Ghana,
going on
right?
on that side
So,
of the world, yes.
and there's some pushing and pulling, and people are being inspired on both sides of the water. And the music that a lot of the funk music was in minor chords, and the vast majority of Fela's tunes are in minor chords as well. This modal type of funk music in America sort of presented a platform for African Americans to say, well, look, well, I say Africans in America, to stand up and to be counted. And we see the same spirit of that in Fela's music. So many years later, starting around the late 90s, I began to listen to a lot of his music, among other artists like King Sunny Ade, Manu Dibango from Cameroon. And you can kind of hear this connection, that not only is it seems like there's this conversation going on. And it's something that I really embraced, and I felt something very warm when you hear it. And then it took me a while to say, well, what is he saying right there? And some of it is Yoruba, and some of it is Pidgin or broken English, which that, we have our version of that here. But just listening very closely and trying to understand what he was saying is something that I began to embrace on a deeper level. And to also hear within his spirit this identification with what was going on here. As he visited Los Angeles in 1969, he met up with the woman Sandra Isidore, and she shared with him what was happening with the Black Panther Party, and he began to put a lot more like political fervor into the music. So, you see him with the Black Power fist, and you see him, again, speaking out against corruption. And, identifying very strongly with Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X. Their pictures were in the shrine. So he was a Pan-Africanist, seeing how all of these, this culture would come to
that when he got back to Nigeria, that he renamed his band Africa 70.
Right.
So that just shows you the consciousnly that he had at the time.
That's true.
That's interesting. But I just found your name unusual, and I just wanted you to tell us a bit about Mausiki Scales. I'm like, okay.
It's
Tell me
a
bit about
hybrid of sort. While I was in college, we went through, when I say we, many brothers and sisters of mine in college, we had a rites of passage. We began to read many books and felt as if we missed something growing up, like the traditional rites that we didn't have that. When we turn 18, you're just grown now, and you can vote, and get out the house and pay some bills. But we wanted to do something very intentional, not that our parents didn't, but something intentional that we could embrace a part of ourselves that we felt, we felt like we missed out on. When you listen to songs like Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, Coming Forth to Carry Me Home, or sometimes like I Feel Like a Motherless Child, it speaks to an experience of people being torn away from something that matters, whether that's Africa or their own mother. And so, like, through that experience, at the end of the process, we took on names. And my name, was Mausiki. I'm Hek Matsamela. And, so it's like partially East Africa, South African, ancient Egyptian, blended. And then when I presented this to my mother, she was like, what's going on with you?
Exactly.
Right. So, because my father is an only son, right? So my birth name is Stacy Scales. And so I took a bit of the Mausiki from my college experience, and I kept my parents' last name. And everyone says, well, it sounds like a stage name. And you really, but that's the story behind it. To honor my mother, I did that.
And it sounds like music skills.
It does, very much so.
Sure
Very much
does.
so.
Sure
So
does.
I guess that's the way fate would have it.
That's very interesting, very interesting. And the other thing was when I was reading about you and what you do in Morehouse, you're a history professor and all that, and I was like, wow, when you're a published author, I'm like, Wow. So how do you combine all that? Because you're the leader of a 15-member band in Atlanta.
Yes.
The CGC.
Yes, Common Ground Collective.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I'm just wondering, I mean, before you tell us a bit about the band, just tell us how you do all that.
Sometimes, if I think about it, it may not work. The wires may get crossed.
Okay.
Well, those same friends back in college, we were at Tuskegee, we made a pact. And we said that if we cannot master a certain body of information, we don't know it. If you can't teach a child, you really don't know it. So we would take any time in our schedule, right? We cut out television, any time in our schedule, and we committed to reading. And not the reading for, okay, this paper is due on Friday, so we committed to try
intentional
yes,
reading.
this intentional reading about learning about the world, what it is that you wanted to present. So, I've decided to try to make as much as possible the college teaching experience my social practice. In other words, if I could impart certain things, because the main discipline that I come from is African and African American studies. So when I'm reading about music in Nigeria, or the blues in Mississippi, or the Gullah people, or just these different experiences, I always try to relate it back to my family, to just where I stand in the world, and it helps me to remember it. It helps me think about it in terms of a living narrative rather than just something in this book on this page. So that helps. But then at the same time, to go into the classroom, it also helps to just debrief some of that some of the reading, and then the music also allows for an outlet as well. So it comes together. And about 4 of the band members were former students of mine, or work, or were students on the campuses.
Very, very, very interesting. And I mean, I was looking also, and I saw that you'd been to Ghana for, I think, one of the independence celebrations.
Yes, we played at one of the independence celebrations.
And I was like, okay, so he's been around Africa. So besides Ghana, where else have you been?
I have a love for Ghana. I've been there
Tell
about
me
4 or
about that.
5 times.
Why I'm asking that?
I've been to Ghana about 4 or 5
why
times.
she's
I've been
asking.
in the. Are you from Ghana?
Yes.
It's the same. So with I feel like I found a home in Ghana. I've been in the marketplace trying to bargain with people, and they say, "What are you, Nigerian?" If I'm asking for the lowest price.
Yes.
But I really, have strongly identified with Ghana and the traditional culture there, and high life music, and just made several friends and family, in Ghana.
Very partial.
Well, not partial.
Where else have you been?
Well,
I'm just thinking.
I can't name all the places where the plane has landed, but Senegal. I spent time in Senegal, and Nigeria is soon on my list. That's on the list.
What are these you gave me at a play?
These
They're getting heavy.
in the Afro-beat band, particularly Fela's band, you would have to apprentice on these first. This is considered the foundation of the music.
Okay.
They refer to them as clefs. They're also called claves or claves, and you usually hear this kind of pulse. And the music is polyrhythmic. So you see so many different rhythms in and out and blending, but the foundation is you usually will hear this in most Afrobeat music, and it's either playing some variation of like a double click or a triple, and the bell is used in the same fashion, and the shakere or shaker is usually playing the triplet. I can't say it's a particular formula that is the same every time, but in a lot of the up-tempo music, you'll hear it playing like that, help push the rhythm, along.
There she goes, like she knows what she's doing.
That's cheating.
Yeah.
How'd you do it with just one hand?
When we come back, guys, we'll talk about Femi Kuti and his music also, because it's Celebration of Afro-beat. We'll be right back.